Hey guys, I just got back from an estate sale. I know, just what I need, more crap, but it was very close to home, and the prices were very reasonable, so I couldn't pass up on it. This estate sale had actually been listed a number of times, and they kept rescheduling it and rescheduling it. But in the end, I think it was worthwhile going to. What I was really hoping to get, though, was some test equipment, in particular some tube testers, but those were gone before I even set foot in the door. I got there pretty early. Maybe 30 or 40 people got inside before me, and most of them had no interest in electronics whatsoever. So I was kind of puzzled as to who got the tube testers. Nobody came out of the front of the house with them, so they must have gone out the back. And all I can figure is that they were probably professional estate sale people, and they're just going to end up selling them on eBay at ridiculously inflated values, because tube testers are just so ridiculously priced these days. I think it's all the audiophile crowd that's really jacked the prices up. At any rate, I was interested in old TVs, of course, and nobody else there gave a damn about them, so I had my pick, and the prices were really cheap. And actually, some of these didn't even have prices on them, and I just made them an offer, and they accepted it. So anyways, they had pictured 3 sets in the estate sale posting online. One was an RCA 630 TS, which was in decent condition, although the piece of wood that goes around the screen and the safety glass and the brass clips that hold it in place were missing. And without that, I mean, it's just glaringly obvious that while the front of the set's missing, that really detracts from the value. I think they were asking $90 for it, which is fair. Also, the back was missing and the channel knob had a chunk broken off. Yeah, if the picture tube was good, it's a decent price, but they do weigh about 100 pounds, and I've already got one that was in better condition, so I let it go. I also found a couple, I'd say early 60s color Zenith sets in the basement, one portable and one console. But that's a bit newer than the kind of stuff that I like, and again, too big, I don't have any room, and yada yada, so I let those go. Actually, they didn't even have a price on those. I didn't think anybody would want them because they weren't working, so they just stuck them in a corner and piled junk on them, and I just happened to see them there and kind of pulled them out, took some photos. The other 2 sets they had listed was this guy, which is a Zenith porthole. Unfortunately, it's the chassis only, no cabinet. This is the 12-inch, or it's a 16-inch tube, you know? I convinced myself that this was a 12-inch, but dang, you know, I think that's a 16. But better yet, this might actually be a 16 EP4. So, unbeknownst to me, I may have just found the picture tube I need for my porthole set. I gotta get that in and take a closer look at it. I don't know why I was so sure it was a 12, but yeah, it's gotta be a 16, because this is a 10. Well, alright. So anyways, so I knew that this, the third set posted was this Admiral set. So I had some idea what I was going to find when I went there. And I had to wait about an hour as people slowly filed in and filed out to get my turn to go in there. First place I went was right to the basement because I figured that's where all the TVs had to be. I noticed that pretty much all the tube stuff was already gone. Like I said, the tube testers were gone, a lot of the ham stuff. Pretty much the desirable stuff was all gone, except for that RCA TV and the 2 Zeniths in the corner. So I started thinking, crap, you know, I missed out on everything that I wanted. Until I saw a young man there who was looking at the vintage stuff, and he saw me looking at the RCA TV, and he said, oh, you know, there's some more stuff in the garage. So I hightailed it over to the garage, and that's where I found the Admiral under a bunch of junk. And then off in the corner with no price on it was the Zenith chassis and that, which I don't recognize. So the Admiral had a price on it that was very, very reasonable, so I couldn't pass on that. And the other 2 chassis, I just made him an offer of $20. He said, sure, take them. So, not a bad haul. Yeah, as far as this, boy, It's that high voltage cage that throws me off. It's so high, and the chassis is rather shallow. So this might have been for a later rectangular black and white set, where it had a picture tube that wasn't quite so deep. I don't know. I don't know. I didn't see a label on it or a manufacturer's mark anywhere. I posted a picture online. So far, nobody's responded. Oh, now that I think about it, let's see. That high voltage insulator looks familiar. I've actually got another chassis sitting down here. Oh yeah. How about that? Well, they're similar. Let's see. Rectifier, tuner. Yeah, okay. I guess I know what it is now. It's an RCA. It's almost identical to this chassis, which came from a 16-inch round rectangular set. A KCS something, crap, I can't remember what the model number was. But this is an RCA that I scrapped just for the 16-inch picture tube. It was like one of these metal guys. So now I guess I have two spare RCA chassis for sets that I do not own. But hopefully somebody online can use parts out of these. Alright, so I got the Admiral, which some of you may recognize. It's pretty much looks exactly the same as the one that's on my workbench in my last couple videos. But this one is subtly different. This one's black. The other one I have is brown. So the one that I've had for a while is a 20x12, and this is a 20x11. I believe the only difference whatsoever is the color of the Bakelite. So, you know, you still can't accuse me of hoarding and having duplicates, because every set I have is subtly different from every other set I've got. Condition-wise, it looks to be fantastic. Oh, wow. I didn't even notice this. I've never seen this before. The knobs are black. Huh. You know, I got that black Admiral 19A11 cabinet a while ago at the Antique Radio Swap Fest, and people online were surmising that there may have been black knobs, but nobody had ever seen them before. Well, I'll be. This has a full set of black knobs. Alright. And these are supposed to be brass. They're just really, really grungy with corrosion, but they should polish up real nice. Something else interesting about this set is it has a back. And it's not a metal back. All the other Admiral Bakelite sets I've seen and have metal backs, but this is masonite. It's got the original power cord and everything, so I think this is, at least the exterior is 100% original. So I'm hoping that the insides are just as good. No chunks missing that I could see, no cracks. I'm sure there's some scratches here under this dirt. Well, time will tell. And finally, I spent a while in the basement talking to one of the relatives of the former owner of the home. I guess he lived to be about 96 when he passed away, and he had a whole bunch of relatives there that you know, were taking care of the estate after he'd passed on. And you know, I was kind of helping him out with a lot of the stuff. They didn't know what it was, didn't have prices on it, and came across this guy, which is, well, don't exactly know what it is, but I do know what it has, and that is 4 Nixie tubes behind that bezel there. So it's the only reason I got this, because it has 4 large Nixie tubes inside, and I'm hoping if I plug this in, this will actually light up. So, plenty of stuff to play around with later tonight. Right now I've got to get back to my computer and catch up with some work. But later on tonight I will pull all this stuff inside and take a closer look. I finally finished up with work for the day and dragged most of the stuff I picked up today up to the second floor. I left the one bare chassis out there. I did identify it. It was clearly labeled on the side as an RCA KCS 47A. I don't have any sets that use that, but I'll ask around and hopefully somebody can use some parts out of it. Now, as for the Zenith, I'm pretty darn sure this is a 16 EP4. I pulled out a 16 GP4 and put it next to it. And you can see that the 16 EP4 is quite a bit longer. That's because it has a shallower deflection angle. I think this is 60 degrees and this is 70 degrees. So I was originally planning to retrofit my set to try to use the CRT, but you can see how there could definitely be some mounting challenges, so I really hope this picture tube is good. Now, as for my confusion about the size, well, they were a little loose with the way they dimensioned sets back in the day. So this is a 16-inch picture tube, and they sold it as a 16-inch TV. But if you check the viewable area, it's closer to 15, if even that. And that's even if you measure the outside bell of the picture tube, you're just shy of 16 inches. So I don't know how they got off calling this a 16-inch picture tube. The visible area certainly isn't 16 inches, and even the outer dimension of the metal bell is not 16 inches. I believe if you'll check out an early black and white tube, well, they might have the same problems. Let's see. I happen to have a bad 10 BP4 sitting here. I'll pull it out and let's measure that diameter. I found this 10 BP4 down in the basement of that old TV and radio lab. It was underneath some shelves off in the corner and I almost missed it. Unfortunately, when I brought it home and tested it, it turned out to be gassy. The whole neck lights up purple. But it does have good emissions, so one of these days I do want to try hooking this up and using it. Because I imagine it'll work for a while, but I don't know how well, and I'm kind of curious to see what the picture will look like. I've never tried using a gassy picture tube before. So let's see. If we measure this. Now they were a bit more honest with these. So the outer diameter is about 10.5 inches. And the visible area, well, maybe not. That's about 9.5 inches. I do recall there was some legislation, I think maybe in the 50s, maybe even as late as the 60s, to make the salesman be a bit more honest, and they had to advertise the actual viewable area and not the outermost dimensions of the picture tube. So I need to try to find a chassis number on this. So I might be lucky that not only is the picture tube still good, but this might be the same chassis as in my porthole set, which means I got loads of spare parts. I found the model number down here. It's a G2437RZ, whereas mine is a G2439RZ, I believe. But they're pretty darn close. And actually this one looks to be in a little bit better condition. On mine, it's a little bit chewed up in this area, which is the high voltage stuff. Flyback's right underneath here, high voltage rectifier. And interestingly, they use dual horizontal output tubes wired in parallel. So see, these two caps are wired directly together. Alright, so get your fingers and toes crossed. I have got my Sencor hooked up to the CRT. And I am ready to turn it on. So here goes. Alright, I see a filament glow. Get off there. There we go. And I don't see any purple-blue glow, which would indicate a gassy tube, so far so good. Crank this up till we get to about 6.3, right on the red line. And no shorts. No shorts. Oh God. Like 0 emissions. Cutoff control really doesn't do anything either. That would just be unbelievable if I get two that seem to have good vacuum and good filament and 0 emissions. I mean, I just can't be that unlucky, can I? Well, I will let it sit for a while. You know the way it goes. If you've been watching my videos, you let it sit for a while and hopefully that needle will start moving up. In the meantime, we'll start taking a look at this other stuff. So here's the Admiral. Still haven't found a model number on it. But now I can probably take a look at the back. So there's the Masonite back. Unfortunately, the one corner is gone, but it's not the end of the world, I suppose. Never saw that before. It's kind of neat. My other set doesn't have that. It looks like it's some kind of protective metal piece that sticks out. So the power cord and adjustment coils down there don't get whacked. I'll get out a nut driver and take the back off and let's see what's inside. I cranked the filament voltage up to about 6.8 and let it sit there about 10 minutes. And now we do have emissions, and they are continuing to climb, so all is not lost yet. Or there's always a rejuvenate function too. But we'll use that as a last resort. Alright, so back to the Admiral. I've taken the back off, which other than that corner being gone is in pretty nice shape. So my other tabletop, I cannot remember if it came with a back or not, but the one that I currently have on it is a metal back. And now I'm thinking that that's really a back for the console version. But, you know, I don't think it'd be too hard to replicate this. I could certainly get a piece of Masonite. And I've got a drill press sitting right here. So I can drill a whole bunch of little holes. And then, you know, use an ashtray or something for this. And, you know, make myself a little back. As for the insides, this looks to be in really nice condition. Oh wow, and I just noticed something. Every tube I see there in that IF chain, they all say Admiral. That's a Raytheon though, so at least that's been replaced. But all these little tubes in here, they're all Admiral tubes. See a little bit of rust on the shields on the tuner way up front, but not on the rest of the chassis, which is nice. I'm tired of removing rust. Oh, shockingly, there are screws missing from the high voltage shield. That should come out. There we go. There's a little 1X2 rectifier that was giving me so much trouble on the other side. Swing tube here. So it certainly doesn't look like it's been chewed up or partially repaired or used for a part set or anything like that. It actually looks to be in quite good condition. And let's see the picture tube. That's an Admiral picture tube. I've never seen one that had that cursive Admiral logo on it before. Cool. This might be the most all-original Admiral set I've ever picked up. I think this R on here refers to revisions, and this will be a latter revision. I've got some that are J's and I think a K or an L, but R seems like a pretty late production model. And actually that makes sense because I think all the early sets were brown bakelite only, and the later ones came out in black. It seems like the bolts for the chassis at least are in place, so it's holding it in. Well, I think I'm just going to button this back up for now. I've got enough chassis lying around, I don't need to complicate the situation. But this is very promising looking. Looks in really, really good condition. Alright, well, while I wait for this tube to cook longer, how about we fire up this Nixie tube device and see if it does anything? It's been about half an hour now, and the emissions just keep rising. Even at this point, it's already far better than the picture tube that's currently in the set. And even though it's below the green good region, this would still probably produce a watchable picture as it is. So, well, we'll let this keep cooking for a while, and hopefully we'll get somewhere over here. Now, as for this device, I have plugged it in. And check out this power cord. That's some pretty serious action there. It's It's probably a military grade connector. Still not sure what it is. I'm kind of thinking it's like a pulse counter. It's got sensitivity and an input. And if I turn it on, which I've already done, so I know it works, at least it lights up, we get a count there. So it says 1220 right now. Oh, it's jumping around. There's a display control. Thought there might be intensity or something, but it doesn't seem to do much of anything. Sensitivity doesn't do much. I imagine if I push this, it goes to all zeros. Yep, up to all zeros. And it's just kind of jumping around. But I don't really care about it as a functioning device. I just wanted the Nixie tubes because you can make a clock out of these. And having 4 is just enough. 2 for hours and 2 for minutes. I did a video a long time ago on early display technologies where I talk a bit more about these. If you're curious about the technology behind these, you might want to check that video out. Basically, they're tubes that are filled with neon gas, and there's a different metallic element for each digit. So there's 10 pieces of metal in the shape of 0 through 9. And a voltage is applied to one of those elements at a time, and it lights up and glows orange. So, kind of neat, I think. I brought the Admiral set inside and did a little bit of cleaning to get a better idea of what exactly I've got here. I went over the top with a mild dish detergent, and unfortunately it's more scratched than I realized. It's a shame, because it is nice and shiny, but boy, there's a lot of scratches on it. I can try some wet sanding. I can probably get out the really shallow scratches, but we'll see. I mean, even as it is, it still looks pretty nice, but yeah, it's more scratched up than I'd like. I've got some scuffs here too. I also cleaned a couple of the knobs. I used some Novus number 2 on these, and they clean up real nice. I'll have to use like a toothbrush to get into this waffle pattern here, but the rest of the knobs polished up pretty nice. I also took some Noxon and then some Simichrome metal polish and polished up these outer knobs. And as you can see, underneath all this grime and corrosion, there are some nice shiny brass knobs. Now as for the picture tube, I let it sit for a few hours at elevated voltages. Then I dropped it back down to 6.3 like it's supposed to be, cycled it off and on a few times, and I'm afraid that this is the best emissions I can get, which is not so good. However, the cutoff actually works fairly well. You can definitely get it up into the black box like you're supposed to be able to when you rotate this control. So I looked in the user's manual, and they say when you've got good cutoff and bad emissions, you should try to auto cycle. So I figure, what the heck, I might as well give it a shot. Now to auto cycle, which I assume is auto restore, since there is no auto cycle, maybe that's just a typo. It's pretty simple. Done this a few times before. You put it on auto restore, and you hold down the red button until this cycles 3 times, and by that they mean this needle will pulse over 1, 2, 3 times. Then you let go back and check the emissions again. So let's give it a shot. Alright, auto restore, and here we go. There's one. There's 2. And there's 3. Now I've seen this before where the emissions shoot way up and then they start dropping back down. So let's see. I mean, if it stayed up at 12, that would be absolutely fantastic. But I can already see it starting to drop down a little bit. What happens when you do that auto cycle, it elevates the voltage on the filament and it puts some kind of special high voltage pulses on the other elements. And what it's trying to do is kind of blow off some of the material that's on the cathode that may have gotten oxidized or worn out to expose fresh material underneath. The cathode, or sorry, the filament is composed of a certain type of wire with a coating on it of like thorium oxide or something like that. Now there's only so much coating, so you can't you can only go through this kind of cycling really once, maybe twice if you're lucky, before you're just out of the bare wire, and then then no more emissions. So we'll see what happens, but right now it's, like I said, it's slowly dropping, but it's still about 11.6 or so, which is a heck of a lot better than it was. Let's see if I do the cutoff. Yeah, the cutoff is much more responsive now. Let's see, life test. Pushing the button now. Still not so great, but better than it was. But considering the tube that's currently in my porthole set has like no emissions, and I got this for virtually nothing, I really can't complain about any of this. So I'll keep an eye on this, but for now, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video.